This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered legal, medical, or mental health advice. The views and opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the podcast and are not intended to malign any religion, group, club, organization, business, individual, anyone, or anything.
I'm Sarah Edmondson.
And I'm Anthony Nippy Ames, and this is A Little Bit Culty.
We woke up from a cult, and that journey was captured in The Vow on HBO and in my memoir, Scarred.
Now, in this podcast, we break down the shame and secrets that make these experiences so destructive with honest conversations on how seemingly benign groups can cross into the cultiverse and how to spot and recover from trouble if it happens to you.
Each week, we bring in experts, survivors, and whistleblowers to explore red flags, resilience, and even share a few laughs, because sometimes you gotta laugh.
Subscribe to our Patreon for early and ad-free listening, some live Q&A, and exclusive content at patreon.com/alittleBitCulty.
Welcome to Season 8 of A Little Bit Culty.
Welcome back to A Little Bit Culty, everybody.
Today's guest knows what it means to have your story told for you and what it means to take it back.
Dr. Christine Marie is a psychologist, speaker, and founder of Voices for Dignity, with a deep commitment to supporting survivors of cults, trafficking, and public shaming. And if her name sounds familiar, it might be because the documentary, Trust Me, The False Prophet, recently skyrocketed to the #1 spot on Netflix globally.
But long before Christine became part of that story, she had a surprising connection to ours. Years before the world knew the name Keith Raniere, Christine crossed paths with him, an experience that now feels very chilling in hindsight and one that we explore in depth for the first time in today's conversation.
For those unfamiliar with the background, this story unfolds in the shadow of the FLDS Church, the polygamous sect once led by Warren Jeffs. We've done episodes on him previously. Even after Jeffs was sentenced to life in prison in 2011, the culture of fear and prophetic control within parts of the community did not disappear.
In the isolated FLDS communities around Short Creek, aka the Crick, on the Utah-Arizona border, a new figure emerged, Samuel Bateman, a former follower of Jeffs, who claimed he was God's new prophet and he allegedly exploited women. I don't even think we have to say allegedly. I think that we have proof of that now. He did exploit women and children under the guise of religious authority.
He definitely had some Vanguard vibes.
Oh, yeah.
In the docuseries, Christine, her husband Togo Katas, and Keep Sweet filmmaker Rachel Dretson worked to expose Bateman and help bring him to justice.
And oh, is that sweet justice. That's in episode 4. We really recommend watching the whole series. It's incredible. But behind the headlines is a more complicated story, one about what happens when visibility meets vulnerability. And in this conversation, we explore the healing power of telling your story and the risk that comes with it.
From online cruelty to victim blaming, Christine shares what it's like to speak out and then see your story reshaped in the public eye.
Part 1 is Christine's story, which is not really covered too much in depth in the docuseries, and Part 2 is her experience with the doc, working with the FLDS and the women, and the aftermath where they all are now. It's a fascinating conversation. I think you're really going to enjoy it. Please stay till the end for Part 2, where we are going to share a very special little NXIVM nugget Easter egg for those nerds out there.
And here's Part 1 with Christine Marie.
Welcome to A Little Bit Culty, Dr. Christine Marie. This is so wild. So wild because, first of all...
Where do we start?
I mean, how are you? You are such an incredible, brave, badass, incredible woman that I knew already a little bit, but now my thought of you and my experience of you is just exploded a millionfold as to who you are and what you're capable of. How are you doing?
You're so sweet. I'm doing great. I mean, it's been intense, an intense few years. And even right now, in the aftermath of the docuseries, it's been intense in a different way, but I couldn't be more thrilled.
So happy to hear that.
The outcome was almost perfect in terms of justice and which is very rare in many of the interviews that we're in. Do people get that kind of justice?
I know. And if you look at the statistics with people who have been sexually assaulted, how many of those perpetrators spend a day in jail? It's dismal. I mean, it's just a teeny tiny percentage. So I'm happy that finally, the law enforcement followed through. I mean, thank God for the FBI. So if people don't know what's in the docuseries, I guess they'll have to watch it to know what we're talking about. Should we go through it?
Well, we're going to give a little bit of context in the introduction to you, and we'll record that separately. So we don't have to go through all the details, but God, there's just so many things.
Suffice to say, one of the things I think that you were just talking about that I was noticing, and I commented to Sarah this morning, is you were able to get in there like a mole, which allowed you to have access to a lot of forensics, which was the parallel in our case. And unfortunately, that's what it took for this kind of accountability. And you would know probably more than I do that a lot of these cases don't have access to that kind of evidence. So they're harder to persecute.
Well, let's just backtrack just a little bit.
Prosecute, if that makes sense.
I want to just set the stage a little bit more. And before we even get into the documentary, can we just establish so our audience knows our connection? And
yes. All right.
Let's just back up just a little bit, and then we'll get into the doc, because I do think it's...
That's vital.
It is vital. And I think it's wild. And Nippy and I were debating, do we save this tender morsel?
No, I wasn't debating.
Until the end. And so what I was thinking is we could talk about it now, and if you're comfortable with it, so to encourage people to finish the podcast, would you read your journal entry from when you met Keith Raniere?
Sure.
I said it.
I have to find it. Let's see.
I have the email you sent me, so I could just forward it back to you. So it's easy. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that was great.
But I'm trying to remember who connect. So just to backtrack so our audience knows, and our audience has this group called the NXIVM nerds, Christine, who just are obsessed with NXIVM story, and they're gonna just shit their pants when they hear that you and I were connected originally when I first got out of NXIVM. Who connected us? Was it Dr. Stephen Hassan or was it Barbara Boucher?
I don't remember.
Somebody connected us.
I mean, we have both those contacts in common, so it could have been.
Could have been either.
I suspect it was Barbara.
Yes. And you supported me then with dealing with the media and stupid journalists who didn't know how to interview cult survivors. That's my memory of it. This is 9 years ago. What's your memory?
Yeah, there was a media piece where a psychiatrist was shaming you. Yeah. Acting as if there was something wrong with you for having gone down the NXIVM road. And I just went ballistic because that's my PhD specialty: victim shaming, media misrepresentation, and humiliation. And when they did that to you, I was so frustrated, I wrote a whole piece about this is what you don't do. That was hurtful.
And what was their response, if any?
I don't know. I wrote it on my own website. So I might have written to them too, knowing me.
Yes, knowing you, the advocate that you are. And so you were that to me, and I'll never forget that. And, we exchanged, texts, and we never met in person. But you also told me that you had met Keith Raniere.
I have met Keith Raniere.
No, and this was after your own false prophet thing, which I'd like to get into a little bit, if you don't mind.
It was actually before.
Oh, it was before. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. So just to summarize from what I know about you, and tell me if I've got this wrong. You were Mormon. You were raised Mormon, or you converted to Mormonism as a teenager?
Yes.
Okay. You got married, you had 4 kids, you got divorced. I'm just going to condense this part. Tell me if there's anything that's important to know. And then how did you meet Keith? This is when you were divorced, I guess.
Yes. It was 1998, and I had a business. It was called the Applebrook Family Nourishment Network, and I had created a product line to help promote positive parenting and family literacy. And then I had about 800 sales reps selling my products. It was amazing. Anyway, so after my divorce, I was struggling with my business. I needed funding. I was desperate because my little business underwent a public cancellation because my sales reps learned that I was LDS and decided that I was in a cult. And then they were all turning in their sales kits, and it was a big, it's a big religious persecution thing. So I was in a desperate situation as a single mother, losing my business. And I met actually Barbara Jeske in Michigan.
Wild.
And she came to my farm and she said, you have to meet Keith Raniere. He will help you, and I showed her my product line. So Keith invited me to Albany and someone paid for my ticket. So I'd go to Albany on a train and he represented to me that he was going to take on my product line, my business, and so on. So when I went there, it was before NXIVM. It was executive success programs as well as that National Health Network. Is that what it was called?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So he was going to hire me. And so I met Tony Natale when they had their store. And that's how I met Keith. And then should I go on?
As much as you feel comfortable sharing. I mean, this is not in the documentary. And I think this is wild information. So whatever you feel comfortable with.
Okay,
he's in jail,
I think it matters because if I would have never met Keith, I would have never been able to do what I did in the documentary.
Tell us more.
So I was excommunicated from the Mormon church because I had slept with my boyfriend. I mean, we were both single, but still they didn't like that. And so I was, questioning how the world even worked. And then I meet Keith of all people. And he was very pressuring. He wanted me to be in his inner circle. He told me that he talked to all the ladies in his inner circle and he had one slot left that I could fill.
Oh my God.
By now, only one slot left.
Yeah.
He said his dance card is really full. It was so weird to me because my background had been Mormon and I believed in like a prophet. Now here he was, not a prophet, but a guru, acting as if he had some divine connection. And I just thought he was, somewhat of a con artist or a manipulator, but I didn't have the language or the knowledge to really, know what he was up to. However, because I had a little network marketing company, I did see what they were doing. They were taking Keith. Nancy Salzman, she was there the second time that I came, and I saw they were taking Keith and they were lifting him up and making him their secret sauce to why people should join and talking about his high IQ. And I just thought it was a marketing thing. And Keith was nice as far as I could tell. And he wanted me in his harem. And I was thinking it reminded me of polygamy without the religion. Mm-hmm. And it was weird how openly he spoke about his sexual relationships with all the different women, including Nancy,
Really? God, that's so...
I was floored by it. He told me, which one he liked because she was into BDSM, which one he liked because she was into this and that. I'm not going to go into any of that.
We want to out them.
But But this was all mind-blowing to me because I had been Mormon for so many years. And, I was for the first time exploring my own, sexuality in terms of, is it okay if I get physical with somebody and I'm not married to them? I just got excommunicated for it. And I was not clear on what my boundaries were in the real world. So I did end up sleeping with Keith, but I didn't want to join his group and I didn't want to become part of his inner circle. It was weird because all these women that were around him were like pressuring me to sleep with Keith. Looking back on it, I used to tell people I don't feel like a victim of Keith Raniere because I never went through things that you went through, Barbara went through, any of these people went through. But that was sexual harassment.
Yeah.
And, I didn't identify it as that for years. So I met him And he said, you need to be part of my group. And he was acting as if he was going to like help me with my business. It was love bombing and luring me. Like, I'm going to solve all your problems. And, I know he's done that since. I mean, to other people. And he was even going to move me there. But something about it I was uncomfortable with. And I said, I don't want to do that. I want to have another child. I want to find Mr. Right. And, you don't even want to get married. And he said, if it takes getting married to get you into my group, it's not out of the question. Can you believe this?
Oh my God.
And he said,
yeah, I can believe it.
So he told me to go to my God and pray to find out if I was supposed to marry him. And he said, promise me you'll at least do that. So I did. And that night I had a dream, like this really vivid, profound dream. And I thought God was revealing who I was going to marry. So I saw a man and it wasn't Keith. So I told Keith, and so I just moved on. And, Keith and I remained friends / acquaintances. And this is before I knew any of the bad things he did. And then when I moved to Utah, I saw the man from that dream at a singles dance. And because of that coincidence, I thought, aha, this is who I need to marry. God sent me this dream. He looks exactly like the man from that dream. And so this must be the one. And so I informed Keith about it. So we were staying in touch. So actually, I was in the middle of two cult leaders. Like there was an intersection. Or should I say two sociopaths, giving my opinion. And that's how this other false prophet became so influential in my life that gave me the experience and the desire to then study how the brain worked and what happened to me, which gave me the experience and the education to do what I did that was documented in the Trust Me docuseries.
Before we hear from our sponsors, just a quick reminder. Our book, A Little Bit Culty, Navigating Cults, Control, and Coercion, is officially out and available on Amazon.
Signed pre-orders have closed, but you can still get your copy today. This book is the culmination of 5 years of conversations, interviews, and research. Everything we've learned about how people get pulled into high-control groups and how to avoid, escape, or heal from them.
If you've been listening to the podcast and want a deeper go-to resource, this is it.
Available now on Amazon in print and as an ebook for Kindle. And yes, the audiobook is coming soon, narrated by us.
Just search A Little Bit Culty and grab your copy. Do it.
Thanks, everybody. Lately, I've tried to be more intentional with what I wear, because as a parent, I have approximately 90 seconds to get dressed before someone needs a snack or a ride or emotional support over something. So I just need clothes that work. No fuss, no outfit spirals, no does this go with this and whatnot. That's why I keep going back to Quince, and I'm so excited that they are still our sponsor. Everything is effortless, comfortable, and makes it look like I tried. They've got some incredible spring pieces made from 100% European linen, organic cotton, and super soft denim. Think lightweight linen pants, easy dresses, and tops starting around $30. Breathable, wearable, and on repeat. Here's the best part. It all looks way more expensive than it is. Quince cuts out the middleman and works directly with ethical factories, so you're getting high-quality pieces for 50 to 80% less. I am lucky enough to go away on a little Mother's Day trip, and I needed to upgrade a few things. And I'm so excited to say that I got some incredible bathing suits. I also got a bunch of basics like an organic cotton micro rib scoop neck tank in heather oatmeal, But my biggest obsession is 100% organic cotton gauze smocked sleeveless maxi dress in ocean breeze. So that's like a light blue. So thanks to Quince, I can look like a semi-functioning adult, even if my morning has already been chaos. Refresh your everyday with luxury you'll actually use. Head over to quince.com/culty for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/culty for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/culty. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Real talk. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and honestly, the timing feels kind of personal. Between wrapping everything up for the podcast before summer vacation, planning 3 birthdays, promoting the book, and trying to keep our lives from turning into total chaos, my brain has been doing Olympic-level overthinking at 2 a.m. There's a reason they call it Maycember. And I think a lot of us walk around believing we're supposed to have all the answers on our own, like if we just try harder and organize better and buy another calendar, like one of those electric sort of digital ones that go on the wall, suddenly we'll feel calm. Spoiler alert. Nope. That's one of the reasons therapy can be so helpful. It's a space to get unbiased support. Talk through things with someone who's actually trained to help and stop carrying everything by yourself because no journey is meant to be done alone. Resentment, anyone? BetterHelp makes getting started simple. Fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist. And if it's not the right fit, you can switch anytime. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is let someone support you. You don't have to be on this journey alone. Find support and have someone with you in therapy. Sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com/culty. That's betterhelp.com/culty.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Thank you for listening. Now, let's dive back into the cultiverse. Wow.
Are you with me still?
Yeah, totally with you.
Totally.
And so I know you're working on a memoir, and we won't get into all the details. What are the broad strokes of your false prophet experience? I know this is mentioned in the docuseries, but they don't really dig into it. But you got led astray by someone who is highly manipulative and, broke down your boundaries and your autonomy and coerced you to do terrible things you would never do otherwise. Is that a good summary?
Yeah, that is.
Okay.
Including things that were harmful to myself to be put in those positions, So I was following the Mormon path. See, after Keith, I went running back to Mormonism. I just thought he was so bizarre, and I was nice to him, but I thought, this is not me. I'm so much more comfortable believing in a prophet. I mean, that was my history for 25 years or whatever. So I, got rebaptized into the Mormon church. And then I met this man who represented himself as a prophet. And I went through some really traumatic situations with him. And when that was all done, I was literally rescued by one of his accomplices. And when that experience was done, it took me a long time to heal because of all the victim shaming. People weren't anxious to help me because I should have known better. And the police didn't take my report seriously enough to immediately start investigating, even though I had all this evidence. Familiar story.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I just had to heal with therapists who understood trauma, but didn't understand cult-based trauma.
Right.
And it took me a long time.
It seems so interesting that this false prophet introduced you to somebody or, brought someone into your life that actually saved you. Can you speak a little bit to that? Like, did he just sort of wake up and go, oh, this is wrong, I better tell Christine Marie? Like, because he was sort of in on it at the beginning and then had a turn of...
Yes, but he had been lied to about me.
Okay.
And when he met me in person, he realized that he had been participating in a terrible... I want to say hoax, but it was so much crueler than that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and a terrible deception causing me harm that I didn't deserve.
Right.
That nobody deserves. So he had a change of heart. And he's the one. I mean, if he would not have come into my life and did what he did, I would be dead. I believe that. Either from, my own decision to end my life or from the very dangerous situations that I was in this, cult-based trafficking situation in a very dangerous place.
Yeah.
So
you were trafficked.
So I have a hero in my life, somebody who wasn't afraid to speak up and do the right thing.
Amazing that you then became that person for so many others.
Isn't that? Yeah, his name was Jeff. I had to become a Jeff, you know, and I'm so proud of him. We're still friends today. He's got a beautiful family. Yeah.
Way to go, Jeff. And now your healing from this process was through the educating yourself. Did the false prophet ever go to jail or was there any justice for you there?
There wasn't. He did serve some time in jail for another thing. And that is where he actually was a cellmate with this Jeff person. And when Jeff got out of jail before my false prophet, that's when Jeff realized, oh my goodness, what are we doing to this young woman? You know, and so, but he was never even truly investigated for what he did to me. And I chalk it up to Utah. Mm-hmm. I was told by an attorney that Utah Attorney General's office and various law enforcement agencies don't like to get involved in fringe religion situations. You know, it might be different now, but that's what happened with me.
Well, they're powerful. A lot of them. It's a lot to take on.
Right. And, you know, Mormonism is so strong in the town in the state. And my false prophet was playing on Mormon beliefs, so it wouldn't make the church look good. But it didn't make the church look good to not care about their members, their women, to let predators like this just run free. Mm-hmm. So, but my prophet knew about Keith, and Keith knew about my prophet. And both of them were trying to say, I'm the real one. In fact, at one point, after I was extremely suicidal, can I say that word?
Of course. Yeah. You could say anything you want.
Okay. I thought, I need help. I was in such a mind fuck that I was taking little steps towards ending my life. And I decided that I have to break my covenant to not tell anyone. I was so desperate. And I thought, who can I call? I've got to call someone. I can't call anyone in Utah because I will, you know, they might go after the gold plates, a Mormon thing that I was supposed to be protecting. If I told anyone about it, I might have all these enormous spiritual consequences. So I decided to call Keith because he was supposedly the smartest man in the world. So I called Keith, and he paid for me to go back to Albany, and him and Nancy tried to deprogram me, you know, and they actually did a decent job. And he was trying to explain to me, you know, how predators can get people to lose their critical thinking one tiny step at a time, you know, like bending the line or pushing the line, something like that.
My line bending, he talked about that a lot.
Okay, so I wonder what he learned from me, from seeing how terrified I was to go to the police after this happened because of the things that I was involved in, which I blame myself for, which I don't now. But at the time, I was terrified due to purity culture and everything. And I do wonder, you know, if it got his brain spinning. And it's pretty interesting. He even vouched for me in a newspaper article. Did I tell you that?
No.
You want to hear his quote?
Yeah.
It says, Marie describes her experience with my false prophet in almost harrowing terms. She even visited a friend in Albany, New York, in attempts to sort it all out. Keith Raniere, an Albany educator, acknowledges he never met or dealt with this person firsthand, but he can vouch for the fact that the man had a deep grip on Marie. Her conversations about him consistently revolved around his demands on her. Raniere said, it was like peeling back the layers of an onion in order to get to the core of rationality. Like Keith, was the author of all rationality and goodness, And then he also said, Marie's upstate New York friend Raniere sees her experience as very on point, given a world where someone purporting a religious doctrine can actually convince people to fly passenger jets into the World Trade Center. He said, my opinion of Christine is that she's a very remarkable person, but not practical in this world. She's very idealistic. She assumes everyone's honest because she's so honest. Anyway, so it's very funny that Keith Raniere, of all people, is explaining to me cult psychology and exactly how it works. And then he went on to do what he did to you guys.
So fucking wild, Christine. What was it like to hear about what he ended up doing in 2017? Was there a big chunk of time? Were you in touch with him all the while you were in Utah, or did you lose touch with him?
Once I understood cult psychology and I started realizing what Keith was, studying narcissism and all kinds of things, I wasn't in touch with him anymore. But when I saw that Barbara had left and was being attacked, I reached out to her because I wanted her to understand. And then we became friends. And then Tony and I started talking, and she explained to me about Keith's past with children. And that is when I agreed to go public about it in the Times Union about my experience with Keith. And the reason it mattered, go ahead.
What was his past with children?
Well, how he had, slept with children.
What?
And that was a big article. I think it was called. Yeah. And I met some of the people that were in that one article. Do you know which article I'm talking about?
No.
Now my mind is spinning and I'm trying to remember. Wasn't there like a young girl that he had tutored or dog walking or something? Yeah, I vaguely remember this.
For her, and then she committed suicide.
Right. No, we did know about this, but we had been told, of course, that it was all made up and that there was no. What we'd been told is that if it was true, he'd be in jail. This episode would not be possible without the support of our sponsors. Let's hear what they have to offer. Raise your hand if you're currently walking around with scratched up glasses because getting new ones feels like planning a small wedding. Just me? I have been squinting through a scratch for weeks, maybe months now. Anyone tighten those tiny little screws with your fingers? Just say the truth. It's hard. It's one of those things on the to-do list, getting new glasses. It's like taking your car to the mechanic. It has to be done. It's a big schlep. It's a rigmarole. The whole thing's ridiculous. You sit in an appointment, you have to go into a waiting room, you have to get the hard sell on all those lens upgrades, and then fork over what sometimes feels like a car payment. So we just squint through the scratches like pioneers. But then comes Zenni Optical, which honestly should have existed decades ago. They would have helped the pioneers for sure. Pick frames online, upload your prescription. They ship to your door. Prescription glasses, sunglasses, blue light blockers starting at under $30. Nope, that's not a typo. $30. And here's where it gets fun. At that price, you stop treating glasses like some precious heirloom. Get those serious work ones. Get those ridiculous statement ones that only match one outfit. Get backups for your backups. One for your car, one for your bedside drawer, one for your purse, one for your special fancy purse. They've got over 150,000 five-star reviews, plus virtual try-on so you can see how frames actually are going to look on your face before committing. Honestly, I'm just mad I spent so many years overpaying when this existed the whole time. So if your glasses are overdue for a refresh, now is the time. Go to zenni.com/podcast and use code podcast15 for 15% off your first order. The styles sell out, so don't sit on it. That's zenni.com/podcast, promo code podcast15. Get yourself some glasses, people. Happy shopping. Okay, parents, let's talk life insurance. The boring grown-up stuff we pretend that we've handled. You probably have a policy, but do you even know what you're paying or what it even covers? Spoiler, you're likely overpaying for a measly payout. And here's the kicker. If it's through work and you get laid off because, well, life, your payout vanishes faster than, maybe your kid's chore list. Yikes. That's why we are super excited about our newest sponsor, SelectQuote, so you too can sort out this mess. These folks have been at it for over 50 years, hooking up more than 2 million of us with $700 billion in coverage. Their agents work for you, shopping 10 carriers in 15 minutes totally free, nailing the perfect fit for your health and wallet. No doctor poke and prod? Boom. Same-day coverage up to $2 million. Got high blood pressure, diabetes, or that heart thing? They've got options that don't ghost you. Finally, insurance that doesn't suck. Get the right life insurance for you for less and save more than 50% at selectquote.com/culty. Save more than 50% on term life insurance at selectquote.com/culty today to get started. That's selectquote.com/culty. Thank you, sponsors. We couldn't do it without you. Now let's get back to the show. That's what we were told.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So
So we didn't.
he was still.
Look
you
further.
guys were still. You
Yeah, we
guys
were
were
still
still in it, and Keith was still out doing his thing. So it was scary to be public about him when we knew he was doing his litigation machine on everybody. But I did, and it was only later when I saw what happened to you guys, the DOS thing, and I mean, I was in shock. I didn't know that he would be that brazen.
Yeah.
And I thought he really must have been drunk on power to keep going and keep going to see how far he could take it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was when I talked to you, Sarah, and I told you the story how he wanted me to sign a sex slave contract, that you said you should tell people about that. I had tried on the bank report, but nobody seemed to care. And my involvement with Keith my story was so itty bitty unimportant compared to some real severe survivors of trauma.
It's the same pattern. It's the same pattern, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the fact that he had that fantasy and acted that out with one of his women, maybe he wanted more women to be doing that kind of thing. So I did contact law enforcement for different reasons. I kept watching his story, and the only information I got at that time was on the Frank report. And other than the One Times Union article that preexisted, his takedown. But I kept looking I learned from, some inside information that Keith had held somebody in a room, a young woman in a room. And I saw that as trafficking because by then I knew about it. And I never saw the word trafficking coming out in any of the articles or posts. And I'm like, why are they not pinpointing this? This is clearly human trafficking. Mm-hmm. A girl from Mexico, trapped. Anyway, so I called the human trafficking hotline and reported that. And I also talked to the FBI about my experience when Keith was trying to pressure me into signing a sex slave contract, which, that was something that...
This is 98, by the way, right? Like it was 1998. Because people have asked me, did Keith start off with good intentions and then things went sideways? And I haven't used your name before,
There's
but
no
I
way.
have told people that I met someone who knew him before I joined. Like I've told the story without your name, saying invited to the harem and said but you had to sign a contract. So he was more out front at the beginning and then he realized you had to hide it. Like when I joined, that was all hidden.
Right. So, but he was using coercive techniques.
Right.
Back then, and fixated on sex. And it was all just too uncomfortable for me. So that's why I went running back to Mormonism. So, but I, left a message on the FBI tip line about Keith and they called me back and I told them what I knew and, wasn't much, but I, thought if they needed to show a pattern, I'm a witness to that. And, I guess they didn't need that for their case. They had such good witnesses, but I spoke out. I did my part. I delivered the information that I have, which is what you did, what we should all do. So, and my respect to you for being the first one to come out and actually show what happened and allow a picture to be in the news, because that picture was worth 100 million words. My husband always says the camera is the new gun. No matter what you say, people don't believe it as much as a picture or video. And I'm proud of you for getting that ball rolling. And this is it during an era when people victim shame cult survivors.
Yeah. Thank you for
It was
saying
brave.
that.
It was
Yes.
hella brave.
Well, thank you for the support now and during that time, because there wasn't many people to get it. And I'll never forget our talks then. And in retrospect, like 9 years went by. I think maybe we exchanged some texts every now and then, but I had no idea you'd gone to Utah and you were doing this whole other mission, this whole endeavor behind the scenes. And this is after you got tell us about quickly your cult education, and then we'll take a little break and then hear about your next adventure.
Okay, so I shared my story in the media in 2013, and I thought it would be this Class C documentary by this, it was an award-winning company, and I thought, the reputation was good, so I shared my story. But it was a docudrama, and they fictionalized my story so it would fit into a certain theme of people who committed horrific crimes in the name of God or something. Now, I had not committed any crimes, right? And to see how they did a spin on it and the public backlash, the bullying, the cruelty, after I shared my survivor story and how this company destroyed my story, I thought I had no ability to ever recover from that, because it's one thing to be sexually assaulted in private. It's another thing to be accused of causing it to happen to yourself and publicly shamed worldwide. And it was a network that had worldwide affiliates. And so I thought nobody will ever hire me again. I mean, they watch this, they're just going to think, it was all this worst possible stereotypical things you could think about somebody who had a cult experience, which now we're more educated, but that was a lot. That was over a decade ago.
That was 2013, yeah. And this was it a reenactment? Was it like somebody reenacted you, or you were involved?
It was both. So you could see me talking, but they would Frankenbite. You know what that means?
Yeah.
Take pieces of sentences that I speak with my voice, and then take pieces of words from another place and patch it together over a reenactment so you can't see that I didn't say that sentence. And they just made me look like an absolute buffoon that was in love with a psychopath and just excited to do whatever he said, no matter what it was. And so that was rough. So after that, I went...
Wait, sorry, Christine, can I interrupt for 1 sec? I just feel, if you haven't already, it's so important. I need you to connect with Sarma Mangalis from she was in Bad Vegan. Have you connected with her already?
I have.
Okay, good. She got Frankenbit.
Yeah.
So I feel like you two need to be friends, but you have connected. Okay, good.
That's
Sorry.
what my daughter said too. Yeah. She was on my daughter's podcast too, Lois. Yeah. And she kept saying, you guys got to be friends. And we talked once, but maybe we need to be friends instead of just talking.
Yes.
Yeah. I think she's adorable. So
she's amazing. And you'd love her book too, by the way.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll get one too.
So I went back to school. I already had a master's degree, but after this happened, I thought, I have to make something good come from this. That misrepresentation and public humiliation was the worst thing that had ever happened to me, because even though there might have been more physical trauma on my body in other situations, this was a public piece that made me, it was like the public wanted me to be eliminated from the family of humankind. It was so devastating. So I went back to school late in life, and I got a PhD. And I actually finished my PhD after I moved here to this FLDS community. So I was done with all the coursework that was required, and I took one more class, and then I was just working on my dissertation here. So yeah, I finished my PhD once I came here. So I graduated in 2020, and I just started realizing that, there are really important ways we can use media to make a difference, because my specialty was media psychology. And I wanted to use media for good and use media in a way that would not victim shame people.
Amazing. That, I think, is the perfect place to take a little pause. And on Thursday, we're going to come back with Dr. Christine Marie and hear about how she used media for good in the FLDS community, and all about the Trust Me, the False Prophet documentary and her journey there and how everybody's doing now. So don't miss it. And maybe at the end, Christine will read from her journal entry where she met Keith Raniere, just to keep you going to the end of the podcast. See you Thursday.
Sinking down to the depths of the ocean, hanging on to the weight of my love. If I let go of it all, I could leave, but I know I won't.
We hope you're enjoying A Little Bit Culty. If so, please do show us some love. Drop a rating or leave a review. Hit subscribe on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen. And subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/alittlebitculty.
Even better, send this episode to someone who needs it. Maybe they're in a cult. Maybe they're just a little bit susceptible. Or maybe they just love a good story. Spread the word, spread the love. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.
A Little Bit Culty is a Trace 120 production.
Executive produced by Sarah Edmondson and Anthony Nippy Ames in collaboration with producer Will Rutherford at Citizens of Sound. Our co-creator is Jess Temple Tardy.
Our production coordinator is Leslie Dinsmore.
Writing by Sandra Namoto and social media marketing by Eric Swarzinski and Brooke Keene.
Our theme song, Cultivated, is by the artists John Bryant and Nigel Aslan.